All right, so welcome everybody to episode 24 of the More Knowledge Association, our weekly show on YouTube, known as the More Knowledge Show. So today is a Sunday. If you're watching this, you'll probably be watching this on Monday, but it is a Sunday as of now. So anything that's going on Monday, I don't know about. So if something crazy happens on Monday and you're watching this and you don't hear me talk about it, you should probably share my Instagram account, because that's where I do most of my analysis on the world. But of course, it's also good to be here on YouTube. And the main thing that I kind of want to use YouTube for is I want to have like actual shows where people can actually see the things that I'm trying to project. So it's not just you're hearing a voice with some images in the background, where it's like I'm actually showing you stuff. I'm showing you charts, and I'm showing you clips and analyzing the clips. All of that is kind of my vision for the More Knowledge Show. But as of right now, we're kind of in a very amateur stage. So I guess what some of you people may be wondering, well, I'm not sure how many people are actually wondering this, but it's probably somewhere in your mind. You may be wondering how am I supposed to transform this show from where it is right now to getting about 3 viewers a video. I'm only at I got about 15 total subscribers. So how am I going to go from that to being like this big media powerhouse on YouTube, where I have millions of subscribers, I get a ton of viewers per video? And I think that sometime in the reasonably near future, we're gonna have a big project, and it's gonna be very big. It's gonna be like an entire documentary or documentary series or something like that. It's gonna be something pretty big, and that's going to be the thing that I'm going to kind of catapult off of. But right now, we just got to keep on moving and keep on progressing and improving on what we are currently doing. I understand that the company is seeing no growth. I mean, it's not really even a company at this point, because I'm not making any money. And there's actually no way for me to make money. I don't have anything set up to where I could potentially make money. I don't have anything to sell. I don't have anything I can use as leverage to, I don't have a good case to attract investors. All of that stuff has not really been figured out yet. And I'm aware of that. I'm probably more aware of my position than anyone else, which makes sense, because you should be aware of your own position. But just know, all of this is just the very, very first steps towards something a lot bigger. I'm not planning on doing, the type of videos you're watching right now forever. It's going to get a lot bigger. It's going to get a lot more advanced than what we're currently doing right now. So I just kind of want to say that, just so if you're watching this as of right now, you're watching the beginnings of something that's going to be pretty incredible, and you should be proud of yourself for that. So anyway, let's get started with this video. So I guess the first thing I should cover, it's a lot of things going on in our world right now. You got it's pretty much 2 things. You got the stuff with the coronavirus, and then you got all this stuff with the election coming up and figuring out who's going to be the nominee to take on our current president of the United States of America, which is, of course, Trump. I don't know why I forgot. I don't know. Sometimes I forget it. What the crap, man? Why is dog barking? Okay, whatever. All right. See, it's kind of dangerous recording out here because there's a bunch of wild animals. I live in Alabama. There's like coyotes, bears, just roaming around the streets. So, if I get mauled to death, you probably won't be watching this video. Anyway, so like I was saying, the two biggest issues right now are the coronavirus and the election. Now, I've pretty much covered the coronavirus. My basic analysis on the coronavirus is that it's a temporary event. It's not going to last forever. Eventually, it will go away, and then a lot of the negative economic impacts will also go away. So I'm not going to make too much of it, but what I'm basically saying is, even without the coronavirus, even if the coronavirus never happened, my economic outlook is still the same. So I think people are, of course, from the perspective of people losing their lives, it is a big deal. But from this economic catastrophe scenario that's going to come as a result of this virus, I'm not on board with that just yet. Now, but the fact that it's taking up so much of people's minds, it does make it a risk. Even if it's not a risk fundamentally, if it just takes up space in people's mind, that in itself can create problems. Because, of course, fear can lead people to act irrationally, and then you lead to outcomes that otherwise would not have taken place. And that's kind of where I want to get to when covering this election, which is something that I've kind of, I guess you could say, I've dodged it. I've been trying to avoid it. I guess you can make any of those, accusations against me. But the main reason why, I think I've said this before, but the main reason why I don't really go into who you should support politically is because I believe that the way our mind works, people are very stubborn when it comes to their political beliefs. Once they choose a side, they stick with that side and they defend that side no matter what. And then they support whatever that side believes, even if it's not consistent, even if it changes over time. They kind of just, they let their brain become enslaved by these political ideologies, which is something that I think is very bad. I think it hinders our ability to think individually, and it prevents us from compromising and really solving problems. Because the only way to solve problems is when people come together and come up with solutions. Because if one side is completely on board with something and the other side is entirely on a different page, nothing's ever going to get done. People are just going to fight. And so I think that if I was to come out here and say you should support this politician, and it's someone that you disagree with, you would immediately tune me out. Just subconsciously, your brain would tune me out, and you wouldn't hear what I have to say, and you would just completely ignore my existence, which I think would be counterintuitive. I think if you are really serious about accomplishing things, you shouldn't create unnecessary divides. You should try to find ways to get people that might disagree with you on the same page as you, so you can have so you can form a serious understanding with each other. So it's not just, I support this guy, you support that guy, and you're stupid, I'm smart. Because that's pretty much all we're doing. And a lot of people think that's how you should get things done, by promoting politicians and saying, a lot of people say stuff like, my guy's correct, my politician's correct, and if you disagree with my politician, that means you support violence, you support crime, or you support the end of the world. Like, it's either you support my person or you want to see society completely destroy itself. And that is the perception a lot of people actually hold when it comes to politics. A lot of people actually believe that if you don't support my politician, you must want something entirely different. Your interests fall in a completely different realm, and you want to see, I think you guys know what I mean. You hear that a lot. You hear a lot of people say, oh, if you don't support my politician, you must support the elites. Or if you don't support my politician, you must support open borders. You know, stuff like that. It's either you are completely on my side or you are in a completely different universe. And that is obviously not true. I think what we'll find is a lot of people want the same things. They just let these political groups, groups blind them from the fact that people are more united than we think. But the fact that, you know, people are never going to be as united as we want them to be. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'll get to that later. But on this election, so right now it appears the nominee to take on Donald Trump is probably going to be Bernie Sanders. That's where we're heading. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. You know, you might hear something like they're going to try to rig things to make it so he's not the nomination, but I think he's going to be the nomination unless something crazy happens. So, what exactly does this mean? What does this mean politically, for the economy, socially, and what does it say about society? So I guess that's kind of the first thing that we need to cover. But when it comes to politics, I guess, who I think will win between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, I actually think that Bernie Sanders is a lot better shot than people are giving him. And the reason why is Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, while they're supposed to be, one is far right, one is supposed to be far left, they actually appeal to the same audience. You know, and with Donald Trump, he appealed to a group of people who felt that they were a victim, and then they both kind of a similar strategy. They take a minority group, and then they cast them as being the source of all evil. And then they take a large group, and then say, this source of evil, this small source of evil, is the reason for all your problems. And then I'm going to attack them. So with Donald Trump, what he used was illegal immigrants. That was kind of his, he took the illegal immigrants and he said, this group of illegal immigrants are the reason why you're suffering. And I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna remove them and solve your problems. For Bernie Sanders, it's the rich, the very, very rich. So he says that the very, very rich are the source of all your problems, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to solve them. Now, it's not about who is correct. It's about what strategy they're using. And they're both using similar strategies, and they're both targeting the same audience. And I think what could happen is Bernie Sanders could actually take a lot of the people who originally voted for Trump. And the reason why is, you know, Donald Trump came in, he made a lot of promises. He didn't really follow through with a lot of them. I mean, even if you support him, you know, he caused quite a bit of pain for a lot of the people that he was supposed to help tremendously. For people who worked in manufacturing, for farmers, you know, all those areas that he was supposed to save, he didn't exactly do it. Now, and, you know, of course you can make the argument that, you know, he had to create some pain in order to have long-term prosperity. Like, he had to go through a trade war with China to make things even, and, you know, but people don't really think like that. You got to understand, this is not about thinking, you know, when people make these decisions on who they vote for, they're not thinking about, oh, the president is just, this is part of his long-term strategy. That's not how people's mind think. People think about, what did you do the past 4 years? So it doesn't matter if, you know, what you're doing was to create long-term prosperity. If I suffered the last 4 years under you, I'm not going to vote in favor of you. And really, that's how people break things. So that's kind of the reason why politicians can't do things that can be sometimes necessary, because in the short run, that may cause enough pain that they won't be able to get reelected. And then their whole purpose is to get power and maintain power. That's really what the art of politics is all about. And in our world, to get and maintain power means to make sure that you keep people happy in the short term, even if it means you sacrifice the long term. And I think Donald Trump didn't really do that. He did have that bailout for all those farmers, but even then, he caused a lot of pain past 4 years for a group of people, the same group that he was supposed to appeal to. And I think Sanders can come in and being like, all right, well, you went far in this direction, it didn't work, so maybe we should go far in the other direction, which would be his side of the political spectrum. And I think that a lot of people are underestimating this, and it's very possible that Bernie Sanders could be the next president. So let's assume he is the next president. Now, what does this mean? Well, a lot of what you hear about Bernie Sanders, I think is kind of misleading. And I think, Bernie Sanders himself may be somewhat to blame for this, because he labels himself as being a socialist, which depends on your definition of socialism. Isn't exactly like, let's think about it. I mean, what is the definition of socialism? Because, a lot of people are so terrified of this word, but I feel like a lot of people don't really know what it means. But here's the thing, there's actually a lot of definitions of socialism. There's a lot of different types of socialism. If you do research on the internet, there are so many different types of socialism. And because of that, the word is almost kind of meaningless. Because to some people, socialism just means caring about others, caring about the smaller guy. It just means taking income from here and then spreading it out. But if that's the case, then you can make the argument that Donald Trump is a socialist. Donald Trump himself, he handed money to farmers. That was pretty socialist. That was pretty... If that is your definition of socialism, then in some ways Donald Trump kind of is a socialist. But most people wouldn't say that. That would be kind of like, how would he be a socialist? Him himself is a big businessman. A businessman cannot be a socialist. So my point is, there's a lot of fear around the word socialism, but a lot of people can't really put a solid name to it. But I guess, if you want to go on the version of socialism that people fear, the fear that, the government's going to control the means of production. The government's going to take over production, and we're going to become like North Korea. If that is the reason why you're scared of Bernie Sanders, you're not scared for that kind of reason, because that's not what he's going to do. He's going to come in, he's going to try to tax the rich more, he's going to spend on social programs, and it's going to be kind of like what they do up in Northern Europe. And see, those places in Northern Europe, some people would Scandinavia. Some people would call those places socialist countries, but they're actually not. By definition, they're capitalist. Private property, you are still capitalist. I don't hear Bernie Sanders talking about taking people's private property. So if that is what you're scared of, you're not scared for a good reason, because that's not what he's going to do. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really matter if you're scared for a good reason or not. As long as people are scared, that can have a negative impact. So even if people are scared for reasons that aren't good, we should still understand the potential ramifications. So I think, if Bernie Sanders gets elected, the stock market might crash. The economy might slow down, because people are going to hold back on investment. People are going to be fearful. Once again, I don't think they'll be fearful for a good reason, because I don't think Bernie Sanders is what a lot of people claim he is. But, I think Bernie Sanders himself, he may have been one time a socialist, the type of socialist that people are scared of. But the fact of the matter is, he knows that that's not what he's going to be when he's actually the president of America. So I don't know if it's the best strategy for him to give himself that label, because then what you're doing is giving Donald Trump ammunition. He can use that word. He can manipulate that word. And, it's such an easy word to manipulate. No one has clearly defined it. Usually whenever they ask Bernie Sanders what he means by calling himself a socialist, he just says he means that he thinks people should not be starving, that he thinks people should have free health care. But, that's pretty much the platform of the entire party, of his entire party. So, it's very ambiguous what, that word means, but that word is going to play a big factor. Because if that word becomes associated with the White House, people are going to be scared. Businesses are going to be scared. Markets are going to be scared. And that could be, as the year goes on, cause some volatility. That could cause some chaos, even if it's for a reason that is, misguided. So, this is what I want to say on the election. Of course, you don't really know who's going to win. But even if Donald Trump wins, I would not say Donald Trump is good for the markets either. Because as soon as Donald Trump wins, he's going to get started with his phase 2 trade negotiations with China. He's probably not going to start until after the election, because he doesn't want to cause a bunch of chaos leading into his own election. But as soon as, if he does get elected, and he restarts this trade war with China, that's also going to cause a lot of fear. And that fear may actually be for a good reason. The fear of Bernie Sanders, I think, may be overblown. It is definitely overblown. People think that Bernie Sanders is going to turn America into the Soviet Union, or is going to turn America into North Korea, which is absolutely not going to happen. But the fear of a trade war with China, that is real. And if Donald Trump gets elected, he's going to pursue that. But the thing is, I wouldn't say Sanders is probably not going to be easier on trade with China either. So either way, basically, we're in an unstable environment. And when you have, people are so optimistic about the economy improving, about the markets staying strong, it's just that view of the world is looking weaker and weaker every day. There's less there's less confidence, at least for me, that view will play out by the time we get to the end of this year. Things are looking worse, So that's just what I want to say about the election. Now, on to another topic I'd like to talk about, which is central bankers. Now, recently what we've been seeing a lot from central banks is that a lot of them are holding steady, except for the Chinese central bank. They've been pumping in liquidity because of the virus. They're trying to reach all of their economic targets. The Chinese government holds, they hold reaching their economic targets very high on the priority list, probably higher than they should, because, at the end of the day, these targets are all just random numbers selected, and they don't mean too much, but, the Chinese government is very big on symbolism, so they need these targets to be hit so they can use that as kind of a symbol of dominance and prosperity. Like, we're exceeding our goals, and then, of course, when you have a government with the nature of China, you need to constantly do that so people don't get upset. But for central bankers, specifically in America and Europe, what we're hearing is they're all going through these policy reviews. They're all trying to figure out. Here's the thing: they're scared. They're scared because they know that they've ran out of tools. They've openly said that they need to find new tools. And when I say tools, I mean new forms of monetary interventions, so they can, manipulate the economy back into running again when things turn bad. And I think they know that a recession could be approaching. And if they don't have the right right tools in place, it's going to be bad because there's going to be no backstop, and the economy's going to collapse, the markets are going to collapse, and it's going to take a long time for them to be able to get things back up. So they're entering into a strategic review, and I think that it isn't bad that they're entering a strategic review, but the problem is that I think that the inevitable conclusion from these strategic reviews is that they're going to just try to manipulate things even more. They're going to learn how to more efficiently kick the can down the road even more, which at the end of the day, manipulation cannot last forever. You manipulate long enough, and then things eventually have to correct itself. So even if they are successful in the strategic reviews in the sense that they are able to kick the can down the road further and, maybe save us from the next economic collapse, eventually it's going to catch up to them. But just the thought of what if they can't? Like, what if they can't come up with viable new tools to fight these recessions, and then we do end up with a recession? Things can escalate downwards pretty fast. So if, let's just say like a few months from now, for some reason things get very bad very quick, and then all these central banks are still clueless as they are as of this point, we could go from we can go from, an appearingly prosperous economy to a complete catastrophe very fast. Because the most powerful economic players in the world are asking questions. They're clueless. They don't know what they're doing. Like the ECB is doing this thing where they're going around, they're going to tour around, and they're going to literally ask like students questions on what are new ways they can, meet their inflation targets and all this stuff. So the most people who hold the most power in the world don't know how to navigate this current economic environment. So what, they better hope is that they can figure it out fast, because if things do escalate and they do turn down bad, if they turn bad tomorrow, on Monday, these central banks are not prepared. And yeah, they're going to be left in a rough position. So I think that's kind of worrisome. You would think that, even if the central bankers, if they're which they are manipulating the markets, they're manipulating the economy. I think we know this, but, some people think it's acceptable, some people think it's absolutely unacceptable. But even if they are manipulating, at least know how to manipulate. I think that they don't even know how to manipulate anymore. Like, they're completely lost, which is a pretty bad sign. So, that's today's episode of the More Knowledge Show. Once again, our vision is becoming realer and realer every day. It may not seem like it. If you look at the numbers, our followers on Instagram have not been rising. Our subscribers on YouTube, our views on YouTube have not been rising. Our articles are not getting any more views. But guess what? I think things are coming together. I really do. I feel like things are coming together. But it may still take years. We don't know how long it's going to take. I'm expecting it to take years. I'm expecting it to be extremely hard. I'm expecting us to fail. I'm expecting the worst of the worst to possibly happen. And, of course, that's a good thing. You should always expect the worst of the worst. But anyway, I'll see y'all next week.